What is good, ladies and gents of YouTube? BBK Dragoon here with today the TvP build order. I'm going to be showing off Polt's Reaper Fast Expand, which is a 12 gas, 12 barracks build. I am very excited that this is the last of the gold videos. This is the last of those 40-minute behemoth super matchup videos. I know they're long and I know they're dense, but I really hope that you, the players, find some merit in these and some help. What you could do to help me after the video is finished, if you could leave me a comment down below of maybe some of the things you would like to see in the Platinum videos. I reached Diamond this season. I was very happy about that. And the next set of videos I'd like to do for the Platinum stuff, I really want to do about 10-minute videos, topic-based kind of content, because these videos are so long and, challenging to keep focus for the entire time. Now, if you want to check out more of this game, on my second channel, there'll be a link in the description below. I'm starting to do pro Terran replay reviews, the first of which is Yoda versus MC, and it's Yoda using this build on King Sejong Station against MC. So there'll be a demonstration game over there from one of the best. He plays it out probably better than I ever could. And you're going to see the build order coming up here in a little bit, so you want to load an AI game against an easy Protoss opponent on King Sejong Station. You'll want to go through the build once and sort of write things down. This build is not particularly hard, but it does require very sharp timing from you, the player. Now, this matchup is tough. I think this is the hardest matchup out of all three, but I hope that this video can give you some Protoss tears to chew on while you're out there crushing ladder. Alright, everybody, thank you so much for watching this series. I just want you to know I'm very appreciative that you guys are, leaving nice comments and feedback down below. It really does help me out. And with that, I'll see you in the build. Enjoy, and we'll talk to you next time. The build will begin in 3, 2, 1, begin. Start in SCV. This is the build order for Polt's Reaper Fast Expand. This is a 12 barracks, 12 gas build into a standard 3 barracks play. Build an SCV. Queue up another SCV. You should be at 9 supply. Set the rally of your CC to the top of your ramp. Queue up another SCV. When your 10th SCV reaches the wall, start a supply depot. Continue building SCVs. This build gets you into 3 barracks, a normal timed factory, and allows you to get a very quick third. Build an SCV. When you have 150 minerals, build a barracks. Don't build it at your wall off. I'll explain in a moment. When the next SCV pops out, let him build a gas. You should be on 12 supply. Build the gas now. When you have 50 minerals, get back into SCV production. That is 12 barracks, 12 gas. The reason we don't build the barracks at the wall is for mothership core pressure. Build an SCV. Put 2 workers into gas. If the Protoss does zealot, stalker, mothership core pressure, we need to be able to put a bunker at the top of our wall, which we can't do if the barracks is there. Set the rally of the SCV building your barracks to scout the opponent. And when the barracks finishes, and as soon as you have 50 gas, build a Reaper. Start an orbital command. The Reaper will be used to scout the opponent. Do not lose the Reaper. Pull 2 workers out of gas at this point. Take an SCV and set him down to your natural. This worker will build your natural CC. When your orbital finishes, drop a mule and start an SCV now. When the Reaper completes, build a reactor on the barracks. Build an expansion at your natural. That means take a CC at your natural. Get back into constant SCV production. On 18 supply, send an SCV to your ramp to build a depot. On 19 supply at 150 minerals, build a second barracks. Keep building SCVs. I must stress that you do not lose the Reaper. You cannot lose the Reaper. Don't worry about harassment. We're looking in his base. We're trying to figure out what he's doing. When the reactor finishes, build 2 Marines and build a third barracks. Continue building SCVs. Put 2 workers back into gas now, bringing you back to 3 workers in gas. Build 2 more Marines. Transfer 6 workers down to your natural and build a bunker. You can skip the bunker if you feel safe. I like to get the bunker. Depends on what I scouted. Start an orbital when your natural expansion finishes. Start a tech lab on your second barracks when it finishes. And buy 2 Marines. Keep building SCVs. Build a Marine out of the third barracks that just finished. Start stim pack on the tech lab that just finished. And begin constant Marauder production out of the tech lab barracks while building 3 Marines with your other 2 barracks. Build a supply depot. I block here for just a few seconds because I'm a bit late on my supply depot. You can be a little bit earlier. Keep building SCVs. Build a second supply depot. Keep a constant production cycle going of 3 Marines and 1 Marauder out of your barracks. The depots are going to be up to you now. Try and stay 10 supply ahead. At 100 gas, begin a factory. This is the first 100 gas after stim pack. Once the factory has gone down, gather your current troops and send them to your opponent's base. The goal with these troops is to do pressure. Build a second refinery and build another depot. Start an engineering bay as well. Do not lose these forces. The goal is to try and force a photon overcharge out of the Protoss or to get an idea of what tech he is doing. Right now is when Protoss is usually taking mid-game tech. Put 2 workers into your gas. Keep building SCVs and keep producing Marauder and Marines. Build a starport when the factory completes, and build a reactor on the factory as soon as you have 50 gas. Keep building depots. They're going to be constant at this point. Start a third refinery at your natural. It's very easy to supply block in this build because we get a lot of money quickly and a lot of production quickly. Try to not let that happen.
Research complete.
Keep building depots.
Add-on complete.
Swap the factory in the starport. Start 2 medevacs right away. Continue building depots. Begin +1 on your engineering bay when you have 100 gas. +1 attack, not +1 defense. Get a 4th gas. When you have 400 minerals, start a 3rd command center. You can do this in your main base, or you can expand on the low ground. If you don't have fear of a 2-base all-in, try and expand on the low ground. We want to be a base up from the Protoss, and we want to force the Protoss to engage into our army during the mid-game. When the 2 medevacs pop, take your army to his side of the base. Try and force pressure. If you can't kill his army, if you can't get in the base, don't worry. Try and slow down his 3rd expansion. Try and do a little bit of harassment. Add 2 more barracks, bringing you up to 5. Keep building supply depots. Keep producing a Marauder and Marines out of your barracks. Make sure you get combat shield as the army is leaving or as they're out on the map. Combat shield does not take very long to complete. Keep building medevacs. Your army should be arriving at his natural now. What you see here determines your next choice. If you see Colossus, you need to get a second starport down immediately with a reactor to start producing Vikings. You can get a second tech lab on that 3rd barracks from earlier in the game. Get an armory down right now. +1 should be halfway done. This allows us to get into +2 attack right away. and build a second engineering base so we can start getting our defensive upgrades going.
Add-on.
Depending on what you see here, you may need to throw down a Ghost Academy if you rush for High Templar. Our goal right now is to slow down his third base while we take our third. Start an orbital on your command center when you get there. Okay, and now at this point, I'm going to sort of talk about the specifics of this build, and you can watch how I play it out. I'm going to work my way up to 9 barracks. You can be on 8 barracks if you're going to be producing double Viking production. You need to get a Ghost Academy at some point, no matter what. If it goes into the later portions of the game, you should have a Ghost Academy, and you should also have 1 base more than the Protoss as often as possible. So don't sacrifice too much taking an early 4th. I'm taking my 3rd right now, and I'll have my max army supply around that 14 to 15 minute mark. The trick with Protoss is if you engage in their circumstances, they're going to win more times than not. They've got a really powerful army, just like we have a really powerful army. The trick is that the Protoss can reinforce way faster than us, so we can't lose our army. I'm starting my Ghost Academy here soon. I'm getting gases on my 3rd base, both gases, mind you, because ghosts are expensive, Vikings are expensive. I'm also getting a bunker and 2 supply depots because you can darn well expect zealot run-bys. It's a good idea to get a missile turret per each mineral line to be safe against Dark Templar, as we want to be saving scans for observer snipes. If you have ghosts in your army, the ghosts are used to EMP the Protoss. And the beautiful part about EMPs is, yes, it depletes High Templar energy, which is crucial against that composition, but more importantly, ghosts have cloak. And the only detection Protoss has are observers, and observers come from robotics facilities. So if we are trying to get as many observers out of the way as possible, the Protoss then has to build more observers, which means less time for Immortals and less time for Colossus. I would really, really recommend that you all, if you don't know already, play some Protoss. Learn a basic Protoss build. The training mode in StarCraft 2 is really, really good for this because they walk you through a basic Protoss build. It teaches you sort of the Protoss building groups, and it's very important to know what they do. I off-race as Protoss, and it has helped me in this matchup immeasurably because you start to see that the Protoss is very, very weak in the mid-game, especially when your front door push arrives. They're also very weak when it comes to handling multiple armies in different locations. Protoss cannot be in 4 places at once like Terran can. Terran can drop in the main while attacking the 3rd. Your goal is to make it as hard for the Protoss to keep his ball together as possible. Now, if it gets into the super late game, make sure you get the cloak upgrade on the Ghost Academy. Do not forget that. If it gets to the late game scenario, he has to attack into you. You don't want to attack into him. The way we force the Protoss to attack into the Terran is by expanding aggressively. That means having more bases than he does. It's risky, and the Protoss must deal with the fact that the Terran is on 4 or 5 bases much earlier than he is. That way, Protoss has to march his army across the way, which leaves you the ability to set up a big arc, allows you to set up a location that doesn't have observers, and gives you the opportunity to set your ghosts up for good EMPs. This also makes sure that you have the ability to kite, which his army, you really need to kite. You need to set up a big, nice big arc. The Protoss can reinforce a lot faster than we can, so you must be aware of that. Once you've reached the point in the game where you're on 4 bases, you can move up to 13 barracks if you like. I think that's smart, but never stop expanding. Just continually keep adding command centers on, and try and harass the Protoss's furthest away base if possible, but don't throw your army away. Once you get a decent ghost count, I'm talking about 10 or so ghosts, the Protoss is going to be really scared of your army. Now, if you don't get ghosts, or if you don't react to Colossus by getting 4 to 6 Vikings per each Colossus, you're going to have a hard time in this matchup. It's going to feel unfair, and you're going to be angry a lot of the time. I know, because this is my hardest matchup, but I think this matchup requires the most game knowledge, but I don't think it's imbalanced whatsoever. It may seem that way because, well, Protoss can reinforce faster, and Protoss requires much less micro than you do, I scan your army occasionally to see if there's an observer on top. If there isn't, your cloaked ghosts can go to work. Protoss players don't get mad. You guys only have to 1A. Yes, you can do Blink Stalker micro, but Colossus micro is don't even go there. But don't join in with balance whiners. You'll have a really garbage time playing this game if that's the case. Balance is really only important to the very highest end of players. So if you are a Terran player who wants to improve, try not to blame the race. Try and figure out why you lost. And this matchup is so much about macro that it's not even funny. If any of your stuff is late, I'm dead serious. If your factory is late, if your barracks are late, if your expansion is late, if you don't pull guys out of gas and into gas on time, you will probably lose this matchup. Terran is an assembly line, and if something goes wrong further up the assembly line, it slows everything down. Don't let little macro mistakes happen. If I were to tell you out of all three of the matchups, this is the most important to be sharp on your timings with this build, it's the dead truth. This build requires exceptionally sharp timings. Try not to sacrifice your army, but also know that this matchup is usually full of explosions and fireworks. One army usually obliterates the other, and that's the game. It normally comes down to one giant fight. I don't have the multitasking to really handle 2 or 3 drops at once, so I try and expand more aggressively than the Protoss does to get him to engage into my big army. I'm not saying that you shouldn't drop, but don't drop to the point where it throws your macro off. If your buildings are being slowed down by attacks or micro, or you paying attention to your army, you're doing it incorrectly, in my opinion. Other than that, this build's awesome. If you see that the Protoss is pushing out with a Zealot, you build a bunker at the top of your wall where I showed. I'll be doing a pro game of Yoda against MC on this map against Mothership Core, Stalker Zealot pressure, and Yoda plays this identical build. So you can see that the pros even use this style of play, and that's the build. Good luck. Hey everybody, so welcome to the replay portion of the tutorial today. We're going to be looking at multiple games, and I'm going to try and show the different things that can happen when you're playing this build out. It's really important in TvP that you end up getting the right units to counter what the opposition is doing. In Terran versus Protoss, both armies are extremely powerful and extremely volatile, and I do mean volatile, very, very dangerous in terms of most games are won with one big fight. So here we are at the 13-14 minute mark. This is an older game. This is from last, probably fall. This is Platinum Ladder. My macro is a lot better than it used to be back then. Ironically, at that time I really thought I was at the peak of my game, but I've learned so much more about StarCraft in the last year by paying close attention to replays, watching a lot of competitive play, and just honestly trying to study the game more. So let's take a look here. I have my army. This is my mid-game army, and I scan to see if it's a third, and I scan up to see what kind of army he has. He's doing a really good job hiding his army, and what this Protoss opted for was Immortals. So every Protoss that plays sort of standard macro is going to have Warp Gate units, and the 3 units you can get out of your Warp Gate are Zealots, Sentries, and Stalkers. You can sort of expect those in all three, all 3 of those in every Protoss game you're going to play. What they really get to decide is the robotics facility. What kind of tech is going to come out of the robo? Now, either it's going to be Immortals or Colossus. Those are your 2 choices. In this circumstance, the Protoss can't afford both, you guys. When the Protoss is at mid-game, they can't afford Immortals and Colossus and win the game. They have to pick that route. Or they can do what this player did, and he got early Templar Archives and a Twilight Council. These together, you have to get the Twilight Council before you can get the Templar Archives. You will want to take the time to learn what buildings build what for the Protoss. I didn't know for a long time, and it's a huge hindrance because this matchup is so much about looking at a scan of his base, and just by seeing these 2 things, I know immediately I need ghosts. I know he's going for High Templar. Now, I didn't know this till probably about, I don't know, a year ago when I started doing, I started off racing a little bit as Protoss, but really just recently I've started off racing as Protoss often, and it's taught me a ton about this matchup. So let's continue. Since I don't see his army, I stem up a small group of units. The Protoss, what he's hopeful is that I'm going to take my whole army up here, and his strategy then is a success because he has these evil early High Templar, which can do a lot. I mean, look at that, 8 High Templar already with decent amount of energy on them. That's enough storms to obliterate this army, especially if I come up into a choke like this and I don't have room to spread. So I send my small little group up first to see what kind of units he has. And we see here in a moment, I see the Immortal. Boom. I see High Templar with Storm. It's really easy to see and watch. What is the next step I do? Yes, that is right. I buy Ghost Academy. Now, if I was a better player, I wouldn't be floating 1,000 minerals right now, which is just disgusting. I would have had my third base down earlier than this. So my macro is not where it should be. Third base is done. I just need to float it over. And I would have had my Ghost Academy a little bit sooner, especially if I would have scanned the main base. I should have known this information closer to 12 minutes, but this is Platinum, and this isn't as hard as Diamond or Masters, so we can get away with some things like that. I'm going to fast forward now, because now my goal is to get enough Ghosts in my army with Cloak to deal with those High Templar. Now, how do we use Ghosts when we have them? Well, we want to set up a fight to where the Protoss has to engage into us. In this circumstance, I should be putting a 4th base down right now. When you enter mid to late game TvP, Terran wants to be a base up. You want the Protoss to attack into you in a big open area like this, because I've already got a nice big arc on my units, and it forces him to engage under my circumstances. I have my Ghosts on hotkey 2. They're also on my normal army hotkey, so I don't separate it that much, but I just want to be able to hit button number 2, that wasn't it, and have a Ghost selected, and have Cloak and EMP ready to go. I want to save these EMPs for the High Templar. I'm not worried about depleting their shields. I want their energy gone. I want the energy out of there by these guys. So I Cloak my Ghosts. 1 EMP right there. It doesn't hit them. 2nd EMP hits them. 3rd EMP hits, and they have no energy. None. Only 2 have energy for Storm right now. 2 out of 9 with there's 5 Ghosts. 5 Ghosts turned what would be a scary game-ending army into something that's now a pushover. And Protoss hates this. Protoss hates Ghosts so much, and I can see why they would. Alright, so let's watch the engagement now in real time. Because it doesn't take much to do this, it just involves making sure he doesn't have observers. If he doesn't have observers, it's so hard for the Protoss because they can't kill these cloaked Ghosts, which do a ton. So cloak the Ghosts, EMPs, 1, 2, 3 EMPs, no Storm energy, and now I stem my army in. He has no observer with his army. His observer is back on my side of the map, and he had to engage into my arc. That army that he had looks really weak after being EMP'd. Doesn't that look like an easy win? That's usually how it goes in TvP. It's usually one side obliterates the other by a very close or huge margin. You don't see much of a middle ground. Alright, so here's a game where I lose, and I'm going to show you exactly why I lose. My macro simply falls apart as I try and apply way too much mid-game aggression. The unfortunate thing is, I really came into the mid-game and I did a huge amount of damage, but I got so greedy and focused that I didn't take my 3rd base on time. I didn't move up to 8 barracks or 9 barracks on time. So here I am hitting my, it's a little bit late, but about that mid-game push. 10 to 12 minutes. The closer we can get to 10 minutes is best. I get the Mothership Core. I get an Archon. I get a Sentry. I get a ton of workers. I'm now getting a Pylon. I've killed a lot of units right now. And yes, I am, taking heavy damages, but I want you guys to look at the middle card, and I want you to look back at my base. Well, now they're building, I guess, but my reinforcement size is so small, and I'm just so focused on this army, and my money is stacking up to almost 700 right now. I should be taking my third base. Undoubtedly, I should be taking my third base right now. He's not on a third. I've done huge damage. I can simply walk away right now, knowing that I can get a third base faster than him, and I can bully him if he tries to come out and take a third base. But instead, I try and get greedy, and I try and end the game with terrible micro. That's disgusting. When I didn't need to. Overstimming. There's no need for me to do this. I mean, just look how much money is stacked up for me right now. You guys, as Terran, we are an assembly line. And if you do not keep the assembly line going, everything compounds one on another. So the delayed third base delays the timing that I get my 8 barracks on, that I can resupply my army on. And I'm going to show you, that is where I lost the game. I lost the game right there when my minerals spiked, and I haven't been spending my money efficiently. Oh, now I need to get barracks. Oh, now I need to get that third base going. Oh, what do I do? So I'll fast forward, and you'll see the pain. Again, being too aggressive, taking a nice big storm. I could have left my army right there to bully his. Oh my gosh, like, just like that orbital is starting to become an orbital. It's not saturated. It's almost 15 minutes. Right now is the time I should be at maximum supply, and I'm over 60 supply away. And I'm trying to just rush up and fight him when I don't need to. Like, just look at this. There's no reason for me to be doing this. When he's on 2 bases, he'll run out of money faster than I will. I should allow upgrades to kick in. I should allow my infrastructure to kick in. I mean, just only on, what is this, 7 barracks right now? 2 of which are naked. 8th one finishing. Plus 1 defense almost done. Plus 2 attack just barely started. I'm so far behind, like, just because I focused so heavily on this fight. I saw the finish line and I thought I could do it, but nope, I couldn't. And I take a fight in his zone that I didn't need to. I get flanked. That army gets obliterated. And I just don't have the money to resupply in time. I don't have the barracks or units. Now is not the time to power up. 17, 18 minutes is not the time to power up. That was 4 or 5 minutes ago that should have happened. Now I can't delay his third base. Now I can't harass that third base. And check this out. He's just going to walk across the map. And even though I do have ghosts, I got my ghosts, look at what he has. He's able to crush me, taking advantage of the fact that I overcommitted on basically 2 bases. And I didn't have the ability to resupply. He gets the GG. So with that mid-game push, don't let it be your sole tunnel vision focus. Use it to get an idea of what they're doing, and do damage if you can. But don't lose the game because of it, and don't let your macro back home slip to the point where mine did. Okay, so this game is from the Platinum Ladder. This was earlier in Season 2. It's on Overgrowth, which is a map that's not overly friendly towards Reapers. It's fairly easy for the Protoss to stop Reapers from getting into their base. Spawn on the bottom left, he's in the top right. I'm going to go through this one. This will be the full kind of standard game. And I hope to show off the fact that your mid-game push, if your timing is tight, has the potential to really just end a Protoss player who is too greedy, who does a miscalculation or tries to tech up too fast. Especially people who think this matchup is imbalanced. It makes me mad when people say that. Yes, I do think that the Protoss is way more forgiving mechanics in terms of macro, but every race has their pros and cons. Now, when you have a probe in your base, you automatically have to set 1 SCV to attack it, like I'm doing here. And the reason because of that is if he is allowed to be in your base uncontested, that guy could do a cannon rush. He could put down a pylon in your base without you seeing. I use the Reaper to go out and kill him. But more importantly, I used that first SCV that was building the barracks to go scout the Protoss. I saw his gas counts. I saw 2 gases, which is kind of an indication of something early gas heavy. It doesn't have to be blink, but it is concerning, and no expansion just yet. So something to be aware of. Now, if he had expanded right now, that would be a 1-gate expand or something like Nexus first. I bring the Reaper in. I really don't want to lose this Reaper, so I'm not going to chance it against the Mothership Core. I'm just going to sort of mess around. I don't want my macro to fall apart here, though. And I set a miss rally for the SCVs, and I'm like, get out, my micro is too bad. Fast forward here. And I start a bunker because I'm a little bit nervous since I don't see an expansion, and it's around the 5-minute mark right now. You'll see one less barracks because I'm doing Bomber's Reaper Fast Expand, which is 1 barracks less and gets you +1 attack faster. Now, I think Polt's Reaper Fast Expand is much, much better, and the differences between the playstyle is virtually nothing, so don't really worry about just having 1 less barracks. Look at my amazing SCV micro. It's so great watching all my probes do stupid things as I mismicro them.
Complete.
This matchup is the hardest because Terran does not get the ability to reinforce as quickly as Protoss. So if you start blowing fights, you're not going to be able to reinforce as quickly as the Protoss, who can warp things in. Okay, so my 6-minute scan, it's a little bit late, 6:45, shows me 1, 2, 3 gateways, cyber core down, and we have here a Twilight Council. You can see a Twilight Council's researching because the little strip's going up. And I also saw that Chrono was going on it, which means blink. These are turning into warp gates, by the way. My scan also saw that. That's all the information you really need, is that there was a delayed expansion being taken, multiple gateways, so we can assume heavy gateway pressure, and seeing the Twilight Council is an indication of blink. At this point, I'm going to prepare for a blink, not all in, but blink pressure. My Reaper is still out on the map to see if he's expanding. I get a bunker on the high ground, but it's on the high ground to where it can't be sniped from a Mothership Core. Now the Reaper's going to go in and confirm if he's expanded. If he hasn't expanded, we know this is a blink all in. He has expanded, so that's all the information we now need. That's not definitive, but it tells us enough that he's committing to blink stalkers early in the game. Not going to be an all in because it's off of 2 bases, so he's got probably a decent chance of doing damage to us if we're unprepared, but if we prepare correctly, there's no reason that he should do damage to us. The second bunker will inherently slow down his push. I get the missile turret there because at this point I'm fearing DTs. Since the blink hasn't come yet, if you see one of these guys, a Twilight Council, it can also be Dark Templars, and he can hide the Dark Spire somewhere on the map. As it turns out, I'm just trying to clear out the area around my base. It's very important I missed the pylon here. You're almost always going to have a Protoss who leaves a pylon somewhere around your base. So especially when you're taking your third and whenever you're pushing out, really try and clear out those nooks and crannies around the map. That way he doesn't have an advantage on you. As soon as you leave the base, he warps in a bunch of zealots, causing you to go back home and not get the mid-game pressure done that you want to. Now, since he committed to blink and he changed his mind, we now get the chance to apply really gnarly mid-game aggression against the Protoss. So once my medevacs are out, we're going to begin our push out on the map. My Reaper was able to scout and find that pylon, so we're going to take care of the pylon before we get out of here. On the minimap, we have map control, so we can see his units moving on the minimap. And we're going to work our way across the map and see what he's doing. I scan in that kind of awkward position because I wanted to see if he'd taken a third base yet. And he hasn't taken a third base, or at least that's what I think. My scan, though, was poorly positioned. As you can tell, it would have been better if I just sort of clicked it over a little bit and actually scanned his base. So this third base lets me know the Protoss is not going to have a ton of units. Protoss units are expensive. In the mid-game, they're very weak. Very, very weak. If they do the wrong thing, they lose. So don't think this matchup is imbalanced. It just requires the Terran to know stuff about this matchup. It requires a ton of knowledge. So here we see Blink Stalkers all by themselves. In come the Storming High Templar. But it's too early, dude. It's too early in the game for those High Templar to be a big deal. Those High Templar are scary if he has a high unit count. He doesn't have a high unit count right now, and I smell blood in the water. I'm a shark, and you can't do 2 things at once. It's just basic StarCraft logic. When you have finite amount of money, you can't tech up to High Templar as well as take a third base and be effective. You just don't have the money for both of those. So I need to continue my macro, which I'm doing. I'm getting Widow Mines, which are really good against gateway units, such as Stalkers. And I am going to commit very hard right here. I still get my third base. I still do the normal stuff. But by committing here and applying the pressure, I can basically punish the Protoss and say, no, you went early blink and didn't get stuff done. That's wasted money. You got High Templar and a third base during the mid game. I'm going to punish you for that because you don't have the ability to defend against what I have.
Your forces are under attack. Upgrade complete.
So I'm reinforcing across the map right now, focusing on taking his third base, trying to get him to run across my Widow Mines. I take down the third base, I believe, or I get it very weak. Keep regrouping, keep trying to split his forces, and he just doesn't have what it takes to be able to win. You can only spend your money in certain places, so if you do this build quickly and smoothly and don't take damage in the early game, I don't see this matchup as difficult as, most Terrans do. I suck at this matchup. It's my worst one. When it gets to late game, I think it's very hard to be patient and control the army the right way. But I don't think it's imbalanced. I think it just requires a lot of game knowledge. So in closing, I want you to view TvP not as an uneven matchup, but as a matchup that is going to require a lot out of you. It's going to require a lot of scouting information early. What are we looking for when we scout? We're looking for mile markers and big road signs. We're not looking for exact details. We're looking for his gas count. When you click on gas, that will show you how much has been mined. Gas geysers start with 2,500. We're also looking at how much chrono energy is on the Nexus. If he's got a lot of it saved up, that means he's saving it to probably push onto some sort of tech which would be used for early aggression. If there's no energy on the Nexus and he's got a lot of probes, you can assume he's chronoing out probes on the Nexus. If you see chrono actually spinning on the Nexus, he's chronoing on the Nexus. That's what you want. That indicates standard macro play. If this is saved up and you don't see any buildings, you can darn well bet there's a proxy somewhere on the map, and this Reaper needs to find it. Your next big tell when you're scouting with the Reaper is how many pylons he has. You want to see 3 pylons in his base. If you see 1 pylon or just 2 pylons in his base when the Reaper is here, that's your cue that there's a pylon somewhere on the map being used as a proxy. If you only see 1 or 2 pylons, you need to get a faster eBay, and you need to get a turret in each mineral line, because it's most likely proxy starport, and he's going to be doing an oracle opening. You can lose to oracles if you don't prepare, but quite frankly, I think oracles are so easy to see because they usually have a lot of energy saved up, and they only usually have 2 pylons. That's your basic Protoss scouting lesson. If you see 4 gateways, 4 gate. You can bet your bottom dollar. If he hasn't expanded between the 5 and 6 minute mark, you can bet your bottom dollar it's going to be some sort of early aggression. Now, they can still change their mind and expand out of it, but you then know that you get to absolutely punch them and beat them up really hard in the mid game for doing that. If you see that he's going down the Colossus production route, you need to get a second starport with a reactor. Preferably, it's your choice, but it needs to be before your follow-up 4 barracks. So when you're on 5 barracks, you then see the army at the mid-game time. You need to get that second starport down immediately because you need 4 to 6 Vikings per each Colossus. Colossus will melt your bio units if you don't have the proper Viking count. Now, if he's doing a 2 base, like Hearthstone's PVT, Colossus Blink all in, if it looks like he's going to be, like, he's got super early Colossus, guys. I'm talking like 8-minute Colossus, 9-minute Colossus. You need to get that second starport before you move up to 5 barracks. So you've got 2 spots. Either after 5 barracks, you can put down the second starport, or before the 5 barracks, and then it just depends on how quickly he has Colossus. This matchup does get easier with time. does get easier with experience. And I'm just going to tell you, if you don't get ghosts and he has high Templar, you're probably going to lose. You need to get ghosts in 90% of your games against Protoss if it's going to go to the late game. You need to get Vikings against Colossus if it's going to go to the late game. And you need to out-expand the Protoss when you get to mid to late game. If your bases are behind him, you will lose because the Protoss wants you to attack into him. You need to force it so that he attacks into you if it's late game. That way you can have a big arc prepared, you can have an area cleared with no observers, so Cloak Ghosts can do a lot of damage, and so your Ghosts can EMP. If you get good EMPs off, you will steamroll Protoss, and they will be upset, and they will think this matchup is just as unbalanced as you think it is. The final note I'll end this on is, if you go down the route of thinking that toss or any race in this game is imbalanced, you're going to have a really hard time. In Halo, there's always different teammates that you have, and there's always things that are out of your control. Balance is one of those things in StarCraft that's out of your control. And if you spend every single loss getting frustrated, thinking that it's Blizzard's fault, or that Terran's a weak race, or that Protoss is just a 1A move, kind of a, easy peasy win, you won't analyze your losses, you'll get angry, and you'll ruin your time playing StarCraft. I kid you not, you will ruin the time playing StarCraft. Look at that great micro. So good, Dragoon. So don't fall into that trap. My favorite pro players in StarCraft are the ones who get good at every patch, who don't whine and complain about this being broken. They learn how to play on whatever patch that it is. Something to remember too is no one forces you to play Terran. I love to play Terran because the way Terran plays. Terran is a macro race. If you screw up your macro, you're going to lose games. If you want a race that's more forgiving on your macro, go play Protoss. I off-races Protoss. It's really fun. But you know what I've learned? Protoss has a ton of weaknesses, just like Terran has weaknesses. Every race is different, and every race has their strong suit. I've been barreled over as Protoss if I didn't make the right decision in the mid-game. And I've felt very weak sometimes as Protoss. I've also laughed my way to the bank as I've steamrolled Terran with minimal micro and just sort of letting my Colossus rip apart his stuff. If you don't know what to do in this matchup, it's frustrating. Don't get frustrated, and understand that, usually fights are won based off of one macro cycle of units, okay? So if you can keep your macro in check, this will be fun. Stay confident, believe in yourself, my Terran brethren, and good luck. In closing, guys, I'm going to be doing a few platinum videos that are going to be a lot shorter. I'm tired of doing these 40-minute videos. They wear me out, and I'm sure they wear you guys out a little bit too. And I'd like to talk about some more general things rather than the matchup specifics. If you've hung with me this whole time, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. I would love to know how this is working for you, if there's something in particular you'd like to see, or if you just downright have questions. Please feel free to ask them down below. I look forward to keep producing videos. I'm going to be doing some professional Terran replay reviews where we're looking at Terran games. I'll lose my voice, as you can tell. The last 3 videos have been incredibly long and dense and so full of material that it might be hard to absorb all of this at once. And I hope in my future videos when I can do, 10 to 12 minutes topic-based, I'll be able to cover some things that you guys want to hear about. Because I know when I was on my journey up, there were a lot of times where I got so frustrated and I just wanted to go, dude, does this ever happen to you? Because you sometimes need that, and this game can be very discouraging. But if I can impart one thing to you, practice, macro, never give up. That's what is going to carry you up the ladder. Thanks for watching on BBK Dragoon. Have a good day, guys, and I'll see you next time.